When I asked our guest today, Cameron Nicholls, if he'd come on Everyday Greatness and talk about the long road to equality for LGBTQ people, he wasn't sure if his story was worth telling. Cameron is a young gay man working as a news producer at ABC News. And when I asked if he'd join me on today's show, he told me, "My life as a gay man isn't that interesting. There isn't a lot to tell." But that's exactly why I wanted Scott and I to speak to him. So many brave trailblazers have risked so much over the years so that in 2023, it'd be seen as a source of pride that young people don't have much of a story to tell when it comes to their coming out journeys. An interviewee's story has never been made more exciting by starting the interview by saying, "Our next guest doesn't have much of a story to tell." But in the case of Cameron Nicholls, that's exactly why he's here, and we can't wait to hear just how inconsequential his story is. Cameron Nicholls, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So tell us firstly your coming out story. When did you let your friends and family know you were gay, and what was their reaction?
So I came out first to my best friend at the time, just after I finished school, so when I was about 18. And I guess I had known for a while, like a lot of young gay kids know. But yeah, I wasn't too keen on coming out at school for obvious reasons. So I was walking along with my friend Bridget, and at the time, I can't remember why, we had a code for gay, which was being a sprinter, which I probably should have realised that I was going to be gay because I was also a athletics runner and sprinter, so it made sense.
You can't keep going until you explain why a gay person was called a sprinter.
Well, I think one of my friends who I was at school with was gay and was out to us, and I think when we wanted to talk to him about being gay or having gay experiences, we would use the code sprinting so that other people wouldn't know what we were talking about. So then when I came out to Bridget, I said very dramatically that I was a sprinter, which was an interesting way to come out for the first time. And then from there, I moved to Sydney for university, and probably would have made sense to just kind of come out to everyone then, but instead I sort of progressively came out over probably like 4 years or something. So it was a relatively slow process, I guess, even once I'd come out initially. Just for, I guess, different reasons, but yeah.
And did you have any negative reactions from people, family or friends?
No, never really negative. I think most people suspected or knew. It was never a shock. But I think it, that's also partly because, I have very supportive family and friends, and, I come from a, privileged background. So, Sydney's, I'm living in the inner west. It's a pretty comfortable environment, I guess, for being someone who's gay. So, I count myself very lucky that has been my experience, and no, it's definitely not that easy for everyone.
And have you ever feared for your own safety as a gay man anywhere in the world?
I think in Sydney, very rarely. There's definitely been times in the past where, people might call out to you. I remember being on a train once and some people saying some homophobic things, and so, there are occasions where you can feel unsafe, but, in where I am currently, I've surrounded myself with, my friends and feel pretty safe. But I think that wouldn't be always the case if I was traveling overseas. You have to be pretty mindful of where you're going and what the attitudes are like there. But yeah, for the most part, yes.
Beautiful. You're a relatively young man, but you're kind of a big deal in the Australian media these days. You were an executive producer at Sky News before you came to the ABC as a news producer. Have you ever faced any lack of opportunity in the business, in the corporate world, because of your sexuality?
I think that makes me sound like a much bigger deal than I am, but I'll take the compliment. No, I don't think so. I think you know, the ABC is a very welcoming place, I found, for myself. And yeah, I mean, I guess the thing about being gay or queer is that you may not always, I guess, know if you're being discriminated against. But I personally don't feel like I've experienced anything, you know, firsthand that's limited me. I haven't always been, I guess, out in all workplaces, you know, over the years as I was sort of coming out. But yeah, I'm at a place now where, yeah, everyone, you know, would know or presume, or, you know, I don't really have to bring it up, sort of thing.
Yeah, beautiful. So we live in a really diverse and inclusive world in 2023. Do you ever find yourself in situations today where you think it'd be easier not to tell the person you're dealing with that you're gay?
I think it can be, sometimes it can sort of feel like it's, you know, hovering there and you may not want to have to address it. I guess where I'm at the moment, I kind of presume that people will know just based on my personality, maybe my voice, my mannerisms. So you kind of assume that people will pick up on it. And maybe, I guess in some ways that's an advantage because you don't have to address it as much. People kind of assume and you don't have to kind of bring it up, I guess. That obviously has disadvantages as well because I guess you're more visibly gay, or, you know, and if there's communities that you're in that maybe aren't as receptive at, then I guess that's a disadvantage. But yeah, I definitely prefer not having to bring it up because it's a funny thing, I think it's just an awkward thing to bring up sort of out of the blue, whether it's to family or friends or, you know, I remember coming out and some of my closest friends I'd tell last because it was just a weird thing to randomly tell them. But yeah, I mean, I think if I was, you know, in a group of people that I suspected may not be as welcoming to, you know, gay people, then I may not bring it up, but I would probably assume that they might pick it anyway.
So we talked to Amanda Hatter from the ABC last week, and she did some of the really hard fight to get equality for rainbow people and had to summon up all sorts of courage to come out of the closet. Did you ever find that? Did you ever find you had to summon up some sort of hidden resilience or strength to come out in the open?
I think that most young people who, you know, from the LGBT community, I think there's definitely, for yourself, I think for everyone it's a journey. And I think, you know, it's not easy for anyone probably when they're grappling with those, I guess, feelings or knowing that you might be different and you have to kind of come to terms with that. So I think there's an element of resilience. I guess you have to kind of come to terms with it. I'd be actually really curious now whether the young generation like Gen Z and stuff, what it's like for them coming out. I can imagine it seems more chill, I guess. Like it seems very open in a lot of parts of Australia, at least. But yeah, I think it's never easy to, I guess, come to terms with that. And I think when I was young, you kind of think, oh, please don't be gay. Maybe it's just like, I don't know, some feelings or something. But yeah, once you kind of accept it, then it becomes a lot easier. And it's a lot more easy when you're out as well to, live a easier life, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good. Now, you were reluctant to come on today's show because you were not sure your story was worth telling, but I hate to tell you, you're flat out wrong. Your story represents modern Australia, and it's a beautiful thing to hear. So thank you so much for sharing your story with me, but now I want to pass you on to Mr. Sold, Scott Gibbons, to ask a few more questions.
Thanks, Barnes. Cameron, what's a news producer? Tell me.
So we are the people behind the scenes of, I work in TV news producing, so the things that the presenters say, we're writing them behind the scenes, we're editing all the pictures that go on TV, and sort of organising the news, deciding what the top stories are. So if something goes well, then you can thank us, but also if the presenters get something wrong, then we are probably the cause of it. But
So the presenters don't actually...
They do a lot, the presenters, but in terms of the scripts they're reading, that's pretty much all our fault if they get it wrong. So, yeah, so we get to bask in the glory, but avoid the mistakes as well.
So how did you get into that? How did you become a news producer?
So I studied journalism and law at university, and I was kind of going more down the law path, but then I got a job kind of as like a basic liaison producer, and then just started working in TV. And yeah, I've worked in a few different places, but ended up at the ABC.
And the difference between ABC and you said you're in Sky as well?
Yes, I was at Sky as well.
What's the difference in the two groups?
Yeah, I mean, they're different workplaces. I think the thing that they both share is obviously it's continuous news, so the intensity is similar. Sky was, there's a mix of shows on Sky, and I was working in just the sort of news division. So, it had a lot of perks. I learned a lot there. But, there's also drawbacks like anywhere, eventually I felt like ABC was probably somewhere that I wanted to go, and also just for different opportunities as well.
Good you. So when did you actually know that you accepted that you were gay?
I think probably I knew when I was quite young, probably like 12, to be honest. And then you sort of are like, oh, maybe not. Maybe I'll just ignore that for a couple of years, just see if that goes away. And of course it doesn't. And then, I guess it's kind of, once you sort of decide that, you're sure of it, then it probably was still a couple of years until I told anyone.
So you said Bridget was the first one you told?
Bridget was the first one, yeah.
And how old were you then?
I was 18, so...
So from 12 to 18 is 6 years?
Yeah.
And then you said you hadn't told the other kids at school?
No.
So when you told them, I would think they would have said, yeah, we knew.
Yes. And my parents said that they had no idea, which I'm like, come on, let's be real here. Yes, no one was shocked. It wasn't groundbreaking information, but I guess you can with some people. You've known them for a long time, so I guess you get to know their sort of quirks and so on. But I still didn't, I still, like, some of my other best friends I didn't tell for years later. I think the closer you are with people, I found it harder to tell them, to be honest. Now...
So at 18, you've told your best friend.
Yeah.
Have you had a date by then?
No.
So how long after you told?
Probably, I don't even know. Probably another year or so.
Right.
Probably when I was at uni. It was a while. I guess it was. I think it was a relatively slow process, and I think it's. It's an ongoing, process as well. Like, I think as you become part of the community, you start learning more about, I guess at the start you sort of just want to fit in. So I was like, I want to just, I'm gay, but I'm just incognito, like, that's, I'll just continue as I am. But as you get more comfortable, you, I guess, want to be part of the community more, and like the experiences that this community can offer are really wonderful, and you want to be more involved in that rather than shunning it. I guess there's a lot of, embedded shame in being gay when you're young, and I think you carry that through a lot of your life. To this day, I think, there's elements of that you work through. It's an ongoing process to this day. It's interesting. And I think people who maybe aren't gay or queer, but from different backgrounds, would experience maybe something along those lines, like kind of discovering what, more about their roots or their background. And Yeah, and I think for gay people, like you are born, I guess, as a individual into your family. There's not anyone else in my immediate family is gay. So, yeah, so you don't necessarily have people around you to know how it works, what the community's like. So it can be a slower process, I think.
All right, so going back onto TV, April Fool's Day, do you do anything special to stir the presenters up?
Oh,
Like, do you give them a last-minute bulletin with huge words in it, misspellings, bad punctuation, comma in the wrong
we
spot?
give them that on a daily basis. I think it would be especially unfair to give them to on April Fool's Day. I think, you know what, I think if we started putting April Fool's stuff on TV, at this point, it's hard to know what's real and what's not. So I think it would probably get through a few lines of editorial checks before somebody realised it was fake. So I wouldn't want to play that game.
No, not the fake. No, just long words, bad spelling, bad punctuation, something to stir them up so that they've actually got to earn their crust.
Well, we've had one thing that often happens is sort of in the rundown to have for news, there's always names for who normally reads that bulletin. So Ros Childs, Karina Carvalho, and leaving the names in from somebody which isn't their name. It sounds really obvious that people would know what their name is, but we've had times where people have read out saying that they're somebody else, and it makes it on air. So, there's a lot of ways to mess with people on live TV, that's for sure.
That's terrific fun. Back to you, Barnaby.
I have to ask you about societal comments about homosexuality, Bob Catter in particular.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. When Bob Catter was asked about what he thinks about gay marriage, he said everybody can do what they want, but he can't dedicate too much time thinking about it because every 3 months a person is torn to shreds by a crocodile in North Queensland. What did you make of that thoughtful comparison?
I mean, I've got to say, it's still one of my all-time favourite videos. It really is. The cut-through that got was excellent. And you know what? Maybe we don't talk enough about crocodiles, so maybe he has a point. But no, that was honestly a pretty hilarious remark, so I'll give him credit there.
Very diplomatically answered. So have you ever had any young confused kids that are struggling with their coming out journeys that have approached you for wisdom?
I don't actually think I have. Probably I don't. Maybe I was too confused to have anyone want to look up to me for advice. No, I think you can sometimes tell when someone younger is perhaps going through something similar that you went through. And, maybe they, just talk to you more generally, or you get on well with them and you can kind of understand that maybe they're working through something. So I think you can kind of assist in some ways. But I also think that, everyone's at their own pace. So you kind of don't want to, say, are you going through this? I think I generally, from the perspective that people will come to you if they want advice, and not to sort of, rush anything or whatever. So, but no, not too much. So maybe, probably people are going to the internet more. Who knows?
Now, speaking of the internet, I need to ask, is the world completely equal for rainbow society members, or have we still got a ways to go? And what are the ways that we need to improve?
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way, but I think there's still, a long way to go in many respects. And as I said, I've grown up in a pretty privileged background, and, the barriers that I've faced are much lesser than a lot of other people. I think, even going to more regional parts of Australia or outside of the big cities is a very different picture, let alone if you add in other cultural elements as well. So, yeah, and I mean, an example at the moment is, in the US, there's bans on drag queens in certain areas. And I think what I've found to be the case, that I can't remember where I saw this, but seeing that progress isn't always linear. Like, you kind of expect when you're young that everything just sort of, progressively gets better. But I think, what we're seeing is there's a lot of to and fro in terms of politics at the moment. It's pretty divisive and fraught. So yeah, there's still a long way to go in a lot of respects, and I think as well, looking at trans people, they're in a very tough place at the moment, I guess. There's quite a toxic debate. And, I think it's productive to have discussions and so on, but can be pretty highly charged. So, yeah, there's still a way to go.
Yeah, fair enough. So I need to ask, are you a history buff on the long fight for equality in the Rainbow Society? The Stonewall riots, Manda last week talked about the bashings at Mardi Gras. Do you research that stuff and really get a lot of inspiration from the brave people who fought it?
Yeah, I think that's part of what I was talking about before in terms of it being a journey. And I think you sort of, I guess when you're younger, you kind of don't want to engage necessarily with that sort of stuff because you're not necessarily wanting to be gay in the first place. So I think as I'm getting older, I'm learning more about that, and certainly I have a lot of respect for people that have really forged this path that's made it easier for someone like me. And yeah, I think it's, whether it's on Mardi Gras or you see in popular culture, it's, very encouraging to see how far we have come.
I couldn't agree more. Cameron Nicholls, it's been so nice talking to a young, modern Australian who represents what it is to be an Australian living in this world. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the ARA Group for being our major sponsor for the 6th year in a row. And thank you for listening. We hope we've helped make you proud again of just being an everyday Joe bag of donuts. Listen to Everyday Greatness next week, where we'll talk to some of the good people who've been trying to stamp out racism in Australia. We'll talk to a member of the Order of Australia and proud Aboriginal man Waverley Stanley, and television presenter on SBS, modern Australian Aboriginal woman Loanna Grant. But next week we'll speak to Sydney Swans legendary captain Brett Kirk about Adam Goods, the man, and the work Brett is doing at Addy Road in Marrickville to bring multicultural communities together. We hope you can join us for that one. But if you want to find out more about this show, go to the Everyday Greatness page at www.barnabyhowarth.com.au or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube or LinkedIn. Thank you again for listening today, and thank you, Cam, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.